on YouTube and participate in that way. So we'd like to welcome everybody to the 2025 50th anniversary of Srila Prabhupada's consecrating the Melbourne Mahaprabhu Mandir. Hare Krishna. We'd like to welcome all of our esteemed guests, friends, well-wishers, supporters. I'd like to thank especially Shrutakirti Prabhu, who was here with Srila Prabhupada when the temple was opened. Also like to welcome and thank Purijan Prabhu for gracing the occasion, plus all of the other senior devotees. Hare Prabhu, especially where is Hare? Oh, hey. Not exactly easy for Hare to be jet-setting around the globe at the moment, but he's embraced the austerity enthusiastically, and we're happy to have his association. Hare has a special place in my heart. His was the first Sunday feast lecture that I heard, and basically convinced me that I should be a devotee. I was well on the way, but he kind of sealed the deal. And then that day, actually, one of the devotees asked me, do you know how to chant Hare Krishna? I said, yes. He said, can you chant 16 rounds? I said, yep, I reckon I can. So he said, all right, here's your beads. And the next day, Chincharipa and I started chanting 16 rounds. So, on this special occasion, this is a little, I guess, overwhelming, at least for me, because I'm surrounded by so many friends, well-wishers, supporters, accomplices, my Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, of course. So this is a very special occasion. And of course, we're witnessing what Srila Prabhupada said when he first came into this room. And he said, it's too small. Right? And that's kind of the challenge we're facing at the moment. We have a small festival now, and we've got 2,000 people at least turn up to celebrate. And so as special and as much meaning and experience this temple holds for all of us, it's just the beginning. It's just the beginning. 50 years is really just the beginning in many respects. But thank you for coming. Today we're going to offer, in commemoration of this 50th anniversary, a special book that's been prepared by His Grace Gopavrindesh Prabhu. Gopavrindesh is not going to like us glorifying him. He likes to glorify Prabhupada, Radha Vallabha, Gaunitai, Jagannath Balaram, Subhadra, and all of the devotees, especially our Shalagram Srila, the array of the Shalagram Srila that he worships a couple of days a week. Yep. So he has a very intimate relationship with the devotees, with Srila Prabhupada, and the deities of our Melbourne Mahaprabhu Mandir. And so in his reverie, he has prepared 108 verses, all in Paka Sanskrit verse, which is not easy, by the way. None of us could probably even conceive of such a thing. But, you know, Gopa Vrindesh would wake up in the morning, and while he's taking his bath, he'll be thinking of a couple of new verses for his book. And so the book is really a measure of Gopa Vrindesh's scholarship, of his devotional service, and also of his ability to get a team working together on a project. Specifically, over the last few years, he, along with Dvija and another 200 and well, that's for the book. Yeah, Govinda. I'm talking about something else. I'm talking about the book distribution. So Gopa Vrindesh and Dvija Pitambara, Arjun Shaka and others have headed up our book distribution efforts. For 2024, Melbourne Temple led the book distribution in Australia and New Zealand, Australasia. And we had 150 volunteers distributing books in 2023, and in 2024, 220. And this is all under the guidance and the training of Gopa Vrindesh Prabhu and his team. And so last year we distributed $530,000 worth of books. And that was more than half the total of the Australasian Yatra in terms of book distribution. So Sydney and other temples have vowed that they're going to beat us. And we said, bring it on. Because we have great faith and hope in Gopa Vrindesh and his team, ably supported by devotees like Dvija, Arjun Shaka, and I should also mention Mahalakshmi. Mahalakshmi can do, she already did half of the Melbourne total. Which is why she's called Mahalakshmi, of course. So anyway, do I hand the book? I hand the book over to Bhujan Prabhu and some words from you.
I'll hand it to Shruti. I'm going to hand it to you after. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vistaya Bhutale Śrīmati Bhaktivedanta Samane Taramane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Namaste Sasunyavadi Pashati Desatarane Om Agyanatimindasya Janajana Salakayat Chaksus Meditan Zena Tasmai Sri Grave Nama Sri Chaitanya Manubhistam Stapitam Zena Bhutale Sayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sahapandantikam Manchakalpatrubhyascha Kripasindhuvayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Hare Krishna. Gopa Vrindesh Prabhu had asked me perhaps a month and a half ago to read through the manuscript and write something about it, and I did it, and it was I found it was extreme in its imbibing an experience of the deities and of the Melbourne Temple. It's just so well done with so much devotion, and when one does something with devotion, then the energy of the object that we're devoted to becomes imbibed in our service. This is actually one of the keys in deity worship or in doing anything, is to any devotional service is to first install, in a sense, was a Bhuta Suddhi when doing deity worship, to get one's consciousness in line with the object of our service. Because after all, whether it's book distribution or deity worship or cleaning the temple or giving a class, where it's not ordinary, it's not an ordinary activity, it's seva, it's an offering. So, although it was a while ago and I can't remember all the different prayers, but I do remember being so inspired, because when someone asks you to write something, something about a book, it's always a bit of pressure. Now, what am I going to write? How am I going to, what in the world am I going to say? But I found it was quite natural after reading these verses to praise them and hope they become a regular part of a yearly celebration of the installation of Sri Sigonatai. Because they're very, very powerful. And anything that we do every day, and we do sadhana, and our sadhana is meant to be done every day. But the problem with anything we do every day, or the people we meet every day, is everything tends to become mechanical. Mechanical means without, in Krishna consciousness, it means without the devotional feeling that connects us together, or connects us in our service, or connects us to the deities. So a book like this is so important because it gives us a glimpse of what the experience can easily be for us when we approach the deities and approach Melbourne. I always say Melbourne Mahaprasad Mandir. It's just a habit, excuse me. Mahaprabhu Mandir. It's just because there's a tendency for things to become mechanical, and I've even heard Prabhupada say about chanting, that mechanical chanting is an offense, even because it's doing, when you're in front of Krishna in the form of his holy names, and letting our mind just take it for granted and do it as if Krishna's not there. It's an insult to Krishna, but it's also a loss of opportunity. An opportunity to be with Krishna in Krishna consciousness. We always are with Krishna. We're with the deities, but it's a matter of consciousness. So this book can be so helpful to remind us that we're in the presence of divinity whenever we come into the temple, and in Prabhupada's rooms too, in the presence of Srila Prabhupada in his rooms. Because we want to keep our consciousness in the presence of Krishna. And that can be done either like Kamsa was always thinking of Krishna, or it can be done like devotees. So this book will be very helpful for that. So I was hoping that, after reading it myself, I was hoping that it would be a regular part of a celebration, a yearly celebration of and what a nice contribution you have made with expertise in the Sanskrit and meter, and the English is well done. And I want to thank you on behalf of all the devotees, and of course of Srila Prabhupada. Be so pleased, because Prabhupada is so pleased with your offering, as is your Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Devamrita Maharaj. Hare Krishna. So now I think you're supposed to open it up.
I'm supposed to open it?
Okay, I'll hold.
You hold that and I'll open. I think that's knotted there.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see how we can go back.
Cut the knot.
And then great treasures become open.
It's well wrapped. I can't even find where it is. Here it is. Give me those. Put me on the spot here this morning.
Want to open up and read some?
Where should I read? Anywhere. Whenever Prabhupada would hand someone a book, they would say, "Where's Prabhupada?" Anywhere, he would say. Anywhere. Some beautiful pictures. Okay, I found a spot. Here's a picture of Srila Prabhupada. Rath-Yatra Festival. I'm okay. Would you like to read the Sanskrit, or you're going to make me? Okay. Gayam Rityam Svajana Sahita Sri Vatagre Samoda Pasyam Guram Sugahana Mati Prema Bhaktyadra Chitaha Uksita Sri Kara Saras Ijat Prerayan Nama Gyane Bhaktan Reme Parahita Diya Bhaktivedanta Devaha. Do you remember that sloka? I'll not do the word for word, I think. Srila Prabhupada, along with his associates, sang and danced in great ecstasy before Lord Jagannath's chariot. Beholding the golden form of Lord Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada, very deep in his consciousness, with his heart completely saturated with love of Godhead, raised his lotus hands in the air, inspiring devotees to perform the congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. In this way, with his mind always absorbed in the eternal welfare of others, Srila Prabhupada delighted in the company of devotees. I think I want to go to the... What
did you think of that?
That was Srila Prabhupada. Is all he had to do. He didn't even need to raise his hands at times. Sitting on the Vyasasana, he would just go. just the movement of his head. And then smiling, watching all his followers chanting and dancing. I was just watching the video this morning of the installation ceremony of Sri Sri Gaur Nitai. And of course, Madhudvisa assisting him. And I think it was Kurma leading kirtan. And the devotees, if you see the devotees, if you're not a Hare Krishna, these people are crazy. Definitely, I mean, jumping up and down, sky high, everyone dancing and pounding their feet. And Srila Prabhupada on the altar with the stainless steel pot from the kitchen ladle, and Prabhupada pouring the milk, the yogurt over the deities. At one point he has his chadar on, he has his bead bag on, and then a little later you see he just has his dhoti kurta on as he's doing the ceremony. I was thinking how much Srila Prabhupada appreciated Australia and the Australian devotees. I always say coming here 6 times to Australia, and it's not on the way to anywhere. It's not like it's you stop in Hawaii on the way to Los Angeles. You stop in England on the way to New York. You stop in Australia and you leave Australia, go back to where you... But he saw something, he obviously saw something here, very precious. We were a few months ago in GEV. Do I have a few minutes to talk? Or is this? And Kurma was there, and he was saying how when Prabhupada came the first time, devotees were ready for initiation. But then he initiated everyone that was in the temple. You were there 2 days, 3 days. He gave initiation. Huh? In his lecture on this day 50 years ago, Prabhupada said, he said it in Caracas, Venezuela too, how Lord Chaitanya traveled a great distance to be with you. Huh? And why did he come here? Does anyone know that lecture? Why did he say, Lord Chaitanya came here to relieve you of your anxiety? This was to relieve you of your anxiety. He said to become anxiety-free. And for me to be here after 50 years is I'm very grateful, very happy that it's been arranged. Sitaram Prabhu, sitting over there somewhere, he did a great deal. There he is, right there, yes, to see that we could be here, coming from Vrindavan, where we just had our 50th anniversary, the installation of Krishna Balaram, Gurnitai, and Radhashyaama Sundar. And devotees would ask me different things, and I say, when you travel with Prabhupada, every day was Janmashtami. And even they wrote Paramahamsa Swami, when he was here, Paramahamsa Swami, you can see him in the video, and he also took a big part in it. So they asked him about his recollections and in Perth. And he said, as all I know is Prabhupada was translating more than anywhere, because he was in this secluded place, no disturbances, no management. He was translating day and night, and he said, my service, my seva, was to transcribe everything. He said, and I was laser focused on the service. He said, I really don't remember anything else that was going on. And I just read that last week, and when I read it, I said, I could understand myself. That's what it was like. Prabhupada was doing all these amazing things as he traveled all around the world. I was here for the installation of Radha Ballabha. We carried, myself and Bali Mridam, we literally carried them on the airplane. They sat in, they didn't sat, they stood in the seats next to Srila Prabhupada, complete with seatbelts on. I carried Radharani, and Bali Mridam carried Krishna. And we were in transit. We were in the transit lounge. And I'm just sitting beside Srila Prabhupada, Radharani sitting there next to Srila Prabhupada, as we took them off the plane, had to bring them back on the next plane. And I was just sitting there doing my service that I was given. And Prabhupada looked at me. He said, Krishna is very pleased with your service. And I thought, how easy it is to please Guru and Krishna. They don't ask a lot. Just do a little service. Huh? You chant Hare Krishna, you do a little service. And sitting there, I thought, and it's the one time Prabhupada said such a thing to me, and I thought, how wonderful this is. But being here, I don't have a lot of memories. My duty was take care of Srila Prabhupada, cook for him, massage for him. Sukla Devi told me of my making para in the kitchen one day for Srila Prabhupada, cooking his lunch. I had to deal with Prabhu here, sorry. You know, you had to make sure you had the Bhagavatam in the morning when he was giving class, his glasses, take care of his glasses, get him up to the Vyasasan, take the cane, sometimes take his socks off. So we were like that, laser focused, hopefully in our service. We didn't get to chit-chat with others, make friends with other devotees, everyone engaged in their service. So this book is wonderful. I wanted to find a spot here with Sri Sri Gaur-Nitai. If I have time, I can read one more sloka. Sri Janavaya Prakata Davase Gora Lila Sudhaya Srimaj Jano Shivakara Tano Shri Navadvipadamne Vasakesmin Suhatama Tita Saptame Suklapakshe Gorango Dravir avabavad ayam sabadutta kripaditahi. You might be the only one that knows how much I butchered saying all this. On this sacred day of Janu Saptami, Mother Ganga, in whose waters Sri Gora enacted many of his nectarine pastimes, appeared from the blessed body of Sri Janu Rishi in the most beautiful Sri Navadvip Dham. This divine event unfolded during the month of Vaishakha, on the most auspicious 7th day of the waxing moon. On the anniversary of that historic event, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, an ocean of compassion, appeared in his deity form here at Melbourne, Mahaprabhu Mandir, accompanied by Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Yay. I found the right verse. That was good. Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Everything you've done, just being a brahmachari here in this temple is a wonderful accomplishment. I went to the toilet yesterday and I saw the showers for the brahmacharis. It reminded me of 1973. But it's very good. It's very good. Very good life. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna. Yes.
Yep, just put it there. There's a very, very special rasa to be experienced by rendering personal service to the deities. And Gopa Vrindesh has mercifully encapsulated that mood in the descriptions of all of the deities that we worship here. All of the shalagrams, there's pictures of all of the shalagram Srila. There's the story of how Lord Trivikram, who receives all of the puja that we perform is offered to the Lord through Lord Trivikram. He was our first Shalagram Srila that came to Melbourne via Bhavananda, via Jananivas, via Achutananda Swami, via a sadhu, yogi on the banks of somewhere in India. Varanasi, yeah. Prayag, okay, yeah. So we have the mystical journey of the deities is described. Some of our Shalagram Srila arrived in the mail. One day I went to the post office and there was a parcel addressed to the temple president. I thought, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what this is. No, there was no sender's details. Right? So I got to my office and opened it up, and there were 7 Shalagram Srilas in the mail. And so I was kind of scratching my head, wondering what will we do with the Lord? And so we decided, okay, we'll worship him. He's arrived, and so now it's our opportunity to serve. So Gopa Vrindesh Prabhu has been engaged in that service, as many of us who've lived in the ashram had that opportunity to render a very regulated service, worshipping the deities every day. That enhances and deepens our relationship with the Lord, which manifests in our other services throughout the day, so we can see that deep meditation on the Lord brings about wonderful achievements in the external world, but it's all based on a deep level of devotional service. So thank you, Gopa Vrindesh Prabhu. Thank you, Govinda Hari. Govinda Hari he's the brains behind the publishing, right? Layout, design, a lot of those detail, and you know, effectively getting a book printed is not an easy task. Yeah. All right. What do we do next? We're going to hear from Gopa Vrindesh, but yes, Rasa, go on.
Very briefly, the sholograms that you received in the mail,
Yes.
are they still on our altar?
Yes. Oh, very much so. Yep. Yep. Krishna arrived, and we took the opportunity to render service, and we still are. Yeah. And there wasn't a note explaining why they were being sent to us, by the way. But we kind of got an idea. We got some inclination of what was going on.
Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudhi Gaura Bhaktavedanta Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. I didn't really intend to write a book. Rather, I just composed one verse as I was taking darshan of Radha Vallabha. So I composed one verse, and that was, I don't know, 1 year back or something. And then from there, slowly started building up and tried to meditate and pray to each and every deities, as well as Salagram Shilas and Giriraj. So it was developed. And I would like to really sincerely thank all devotees who engaged me in the service and who helped me with the book, because I would say the composing was the easiest part in one sense. But after that, the work was a lot, and I didn't know that before. I was thinking it's just compose and check with the Sanskrit whether it's okay, and that's about it. But after that, the real work started in terms of publishing, and it's a team of devotees who helped me through that. So it's really their work, and I sincerely thank all the devotees. I tried to glorify for my own purification the deities, the temple, the devotees, and Srila Prabhupada, of course, and offer some prayers. So I offer this to everyone in the sense that it gives some pleasure to all the devotees, Srila Prabhupada and the deities. That's my prayer. And bless me that I can continue my devotion service here. So thank you. Pay obeisances to all of you. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
You know, in many respects, Gopa Vrindesh Prabhu exemplifies our community in that he has a talent. He's already written, I think for the last 3 or 4 years, an ashtakam for five ashtakams he's already written on Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja. So he has a natural aptitude and talent for Sanskrit poetry, I think. And so we should encourage him. Just like, you know, he's like a fast bowler in a cricket team, right? We encourage them to bowl fast because that's their strength. And of course, we have many other members within our community who also have a variety of talents. And Gopa Vrindesh is recognizing those also and glorifying the service of the devotees in this book as well. So we want to recognize Gopa Vrindesh's natural talents and support him in pursuing those. And may this be just one of many books that he prepares for the glorification of Radha Vallabha, Gaunitai, Jagannath Balaram, Subhadra, Srila Prabhupada, and of course all of the devotees. Hare Krishna. So,
I was just thinking in seeing this book and its history of a Melbourne temple, how back when Prabhupada in India, many of you will know of the Juhu temple and the fight in Juhu. And when everything was done, after many years, it was a great battle, a very big battle Srila Prabhupada had with this one individual. And when it was all done, he said to Giriraj, it was a good fight. And then he said, someone should write a book about it. Because it's important history, the very beginning of ISKCON's history, these things. So same thing here. What Prabhu has put together here, assembled the history, as he said, it's not the glorification of one person or even just the deities, it's the glorification of everyone that took part in bringing this temple to what it is today. So having that recorded, it's very important. Prabhupada wanted to see all these things recorded because this was the grassroots of ISKCON, of course, in Australia. And you can see as it grows more and more how that Prabhupada said he established this ISKCON branch of the Brahma Gaudiya Sampradaya. So ISKCON Australia and here in Melbourne is part of this branch. So to have that written down, everything, all the deities, the Rath-yatra festivals, it's a very wonderful service. And as he said, everyone took part in, and he's put it together very nicely. So it's such a wonderful contribution. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
So all of the Prabhupada disciples, you're to receive a copy of the book. So where are we distributing it? Lunchtime. Yeah, we'll be distributing that book, so you'll get a copy. And of course there will be copies for sale. Would you believe? But it's a wonderful book. And on a wonderful occasion. We're going to continue with Remembrances. Bhakta? Do you want to take over from now? Or do I get a chance to say something? Not much more. I guess it's time to say thank you. And just a little bit of a word on the state of affairs. You know, we're talking about a battle, a fight. It's been, I think it's ever since I joined, it's been a battle, a fight. And of course, devotees are a little concerned about the current state of affairs, especially with the neighbours cranking up their publicity campaign. But to reassure everybody, we have, on good legal counsel, some consolation in the information or the facts that we have a very strong case. Right. The temple is not going to be closed. The kitchen is not going to be closed. Despite rumours to the contrary, even amongst some of our own people. Yet we do have a challenge. That's fairly obvious. This place is too small. The reason why we're holding events elsewhere is because, not because of the neighbours, but because this place is too small. That's a fact. And that's a challenge for us. But in one sense, it's a great challenge to have. You know, there's too many of us. Right? And of course, Radha Vallabha, Gaunitai, Lord Jagannath Balaram, Subhadra Srila Prabhupada have plans for us to be a big community, bigger than we are at the moment. And so in the growing phase that we're in now, we're being challenged because we're moving from the known. Well, it's very comfortable to come here and celebrate festivals and honour the Mahaprasadam and associate with the devotees. The the little piazza out there is quite conducive to just getting together and having a powwow with your mates, right? With the Prabhus, I mean, right? and our kids love that. We have a very interesting, I never liked church very much when I was a kid. I was happy to leave, right? But our kids won't leave the temple when they come here, right? The parents are struggling to go home because the kids want to stay here. So Prabhupada's given us a very conducive environment within which to build our community up to the point where we are now. But now it's scary because we're moving into the unknown. It's expensive. When you're holding a birthday party in your own backyard, it doesn't cost anything apart from, feeding your friends, right? But when we move 2,000 people or 3,000 people to a venue somewhere else, it's expensive, right? Our birthday parties are very expensive events, right? So the next steps, where do we move to the next appropriately sized location? Right, we all have big ideas. There's no doubt about that. But we need to measure our paces carefully so that we can move from here to the big golden dome temple, which may be many decades away, because they're expensive. Right? So it's been an adventure so far, and a lot of excitement on the way, a lot of challenges, and have a guess what? There's still more to come. And maybe for some of us it may be next lifetime that we continue on this journey. Right? So we need to create the community and the environment, the spirit and the atmosphere, that devotional service without motivation other than to please Krishna and Srila Prabhupada, and without interruption. So that if and when we do come back in the next lifetime to render service to Radha Vallabha, it's as good a place as it is now. Right? Jayapataka Maharaj said to me once in Mayapur, he said, we better get this Gurukul together. I said, because next lifetime you and I will be coming back here to go to school. So we want to maintain that mood and that spirit of cooperation, of collective effort. This is the Sankirtan movement. We see in other incarnations the Lord appears by himself. Of course, never really by himself. He's always supported by his entourage. But specifically in the Kali Yuga, we see the Panchatattva, and so the Lord appears in a sangha, deliberately in a sangha of devotees. And that's really our strength, that Srila Prabhupada gave us the opportunity to work together within ISKCON to make progress ourselves personally and to develop our own relationship with the Lord so that we're internally making progress, and that's then manifest or demonstrated in the mood of all of the devotees working collectively. So let's keep that mood of cooperation and collective service intact as we move forward into the unknown. Well, actually it'll be more of the same. Kirtan, worship of the deities, hearing the Bhagavatam, associating with the devotees, and of course, what's after that? Prasadam. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, over to you, Bhakta Prabhu. We probably do. Where's the other mic? There you go.
Okay, so this part of the program is for everyone to share a memory that you've held about Melbourne Temple that has really affected you. So we're going to start with some of the senior devotees, first off. And then each one will stand up and say, my name is such and such. I came to Hare Krishna Temple in 1985. My service has been this. And the thing that most impacted me for Melbourne Temple and my association with the devotees here has been this. You have 5 minutes to talk, because there are a lot of people here. So 5 minutes to talk and present your thoughts. Now we need people, first of all, I'm going to ask Harisori Prabhu, Shrudikirti Prabhu, and Burjan Prabhu for a 5 minute, something that's really impacted on you. And I just got a message that Ugra Shrava also wants to say a 5 minute talk as well. So can we do that? So if everybody can identify who they are, what their service was here in Melbourne and when they came, and speak for only 5 minutes. I haven't got a hook, but I've got long arms and I can take the microphone away from you. It'll be split between men and women, so it's people from the 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties, 10s and today. Over to you, Harisori Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Melbourne Mahaprabhu Mandir ki jai. So, there's so many memories. It's hard to pick out which one to talk about. I had an experience here in Melbourne before I met before I joined the temple. I think I'll tell that one today. I was a 10-pound pom. I had arrived in Australia, in Sydney in 1971. Later on I found out that Prabhupada had just visited on his first visit and left 2 days before I met the devotees. So I'd gone to Australia on April of 1971. It was myself and two old school friends. We'd gone up from infant school, junior school, and up to high school. And we were fried with what was going on in England at that time. It wasn't a happy place for me, at least. I was born and brought up there, but I just wanted to get out. So I was going through some existential crisis. I had an out-of-body experience just before I left England to come to Australia, and that changed my whole outlook on who I thought I was. What am I supposed to be doing? Why do I have to die? So all these things started crowding my mind. So when we got to Australia, we landed in Sydney, and they let us out from the boat, and we went into downtown Sydney, and there were the devotees. They were chanting on one crossways, and I was immediately attracted. And there was about a dozen of us. We'd met some guys on the boat from Liverpool and Scotland and London. So there was about 10 or 12 of us walking in a group. And we got to the stoplights, and the devotees were chanting. And I immediately, I was, what's that? And then one devotee woman, she came up, she was selling back to Godheads. So she said, I've just been in Australia for a short while. I'm also from England. So she gave me the magazine. It was a number 37. BTG, had the Rasa Leela on the front cover. And I gave her 20 cents. And she said, why don't you come to our love feast? So I was thinking, what's a love feast? My impression of a feast was like, you know, a big long table, dogs underneath, pigs' heads, you know, like the medieval feast. And I thought, love, what does that mean? So anyway, I didn't go. But I had the magazine. Out of that group, I was the only one that got the magazine. So when we got back, we were staying in the migrant hostel. And we had like 1 free week to find jobs and find a place to stay. So when we got back to the hostel, I opened up the Back to Godhead, and everybody crowded around. Nobody could understand anything in it at all. The front cover, you know, people, the little blue fellas with the girls, flowers coming down from the sky. We couldn't figure out anything. And one of our party, he said, well, I think those little blue fellas are spirits. But that was as far as we got. Rasalila. So I tried to read it, and I just couldn't penetrate it at all. There was a line drawing of Narada Muni. I thought, who's this woman? Why is she wearing a shirt or something? And when I tried to read the articles, the Sanskrit, everything about them and the topic, it just completely was over my head. So I thought, I'll keep this for later. I knew I was headed somewhere, and I just felt very strongly this magazine is like it's alive. It had this vibration about it, and I knew I have to keep this, and later on I'll maybe be able to understand something of it. So that was how I got my first BTG. It was by Barbie, Chira's wife. She had sold me the magazine. So from Sydney we went to Perth, and from Perth we went to the mining camps in the north, West Australia. And I had this BTG with me, and every month or 2 months I would pull it out and start reading. And gradually I started to figure out some of the things it was talking about. But I was having this, as I say, an existential crisis. I go out on the work site and look at everything, and it was like watching a movie screen. It wasn't real. And it was a little scary. I was moving away from the material energy, but I didn't know what was lying ahead. I only knew that I couldn't be involved in all of this stuff that's going on. So after 6 months, I got to a point where I couldn't function anymore, practically. And my only hope was in the BTG. And I started to understand some things. And other things just went over my head. But I told my friends, I've got to go back down to Sydney and find these people. So I left the mining camp just after Christmas, 71, and via Perth. And then I booked a train to Sydney. There was an 8-hour stopover in Melbourne. So I was leaving from Flinders Street. So I thought, I'll take a look around. I've got 8 hours. And I walked around the corner. There's the city square. And there's the devotees. They're all chanting. I thought, wow, this is great. So sometime in that last year, the devotees had started, as Kuma mentioned, had started the temple here in Melbourne. So I was approached by Upananda Prabhu. He was the second devotee that I met. And he had a big stack of magazines. So I asked, have you got anything there that tells you what God is? Because in my own speculations, I come to a point where I only have one question left. What is God? In Perth, on the way over, I'd actually been told by one friend on the work site, there's this great book, something like The First and Last Freedom or something, by Krishnamurti, and you should read it, because it's so far out, because it tells you that you're God. So he thought, well, that was exciting. Anyway, so when I left the mining camp, I went down to Perth first. I bought that book, and I opened it up to the table of contents, and I saw chapter 3 or chapter 4. Is there a God? So I went straight to that chapter, and when I read it, he said, well, sometimes people ask me if there's a God. So I tell them, if you think there's a God, then there's a God. If you don't believe there's a God, then there's no God. So I just binned the book. I thought, this is nonsense. Either there is or there isn't, but it's not a question of what I think. So I left Perth, I came to Melbourne. In those days, people used to advertise. Got a car going from Perth to Adelaide or Melbourne or wherever, and you could hitch a ride. You book it on in the ads. So I got a ride with a couple of guys from New Zealand, and they'd been working in a McDonald's, so they had an esky full of chicken legs, and that's what we ate on the way over. But I got to Melbourne, went to Flinders Street, came to the city square, and then Upananda, I asked him, have you got anything that tells you what God is? So to his credit, he'd actually read all the magazines. He had four issues, so I bought all those. And then I asked this question. So I could see he was getting excited. And so he said, he read out a paragraph from one of Prabhupada's articles in the PTG. He said, God is omniscient, God is omnipresent, God is all-powerful, and he's a person, and his name is Krishna. So I put my finger in the spot. I went down to the riverbank, the Yarra, and I sat there for a couple of hours reading these BTGs. So I read out this paragraph, description of God. God is omniscient. And I got a sudden flash how you could know everything at all times. And God is all powerful. There's nowhere where you can go without him knowing everything about you, controlling you. And God is omnipresent. He's everywhere at once. So each description, it's like a light bulb going off in my head. And then when I read, and God is a person, that was it. That was my final realization. He had to be a person. And then Prabhupada says, and his name is Krishna. So I thought, wow, that's far out. God's actually got a name. So I've been 21 years in ignorance, and now Prabhupada was enlightening. So I thought, now if I accept this is true, I'm going to have to join these people. I'd never been to a temple. Upananda had tried to get me to stop in Melbourne. He said, we've got a temple here, you don't need to go to Sydney. But I got my ticket to Sydney and I was going. But I had this revelation, I think it's called an epiphany, on the banks of the Yarra River in Melbourne. So that was...
Jai Hare, sorry, Prabhu.
Just one sentence.
No problem.
Well, this is the difference between Prabhupada and the other so-called gurus and spiritual people. Prabhupada was the only one that was giving real knowledge. And that's why we're all here. So, Prabhupada Ki Jai.
For those of you that don't know, Harisori Prabhu was once the GBC here in Melbourne in Australia, and he was called Heavy Harry at that stage. So I was very reluctant and fearful to interrupt him and let him go on for a little bit longer. So please, there are a lot of people here and a lot of people would like to say. Also, there's also an open mic tomorrow at the Timber Yard as well. We're again asking people for their realizations. 5 minutes. There's something that must be in your mind that had such a powerful effect on you when you were here in Melbourne Temple. So Shrutikirti Prabhu, what is yours?
He has the most difficult service this morning in the temple. I've done it many times in Vrindavan. I guess a few things. I mentioned one already, just carrying Srimati Radharani here and Prabhupada acknowledging what for me was a very simple service. So it's something I've never forgotten. I can literally remember sitting next to him in the chair in the transit lounge at the airport and him saying that. But one thing that really impacted me, and of course being with Prabhupada, and I was here for the installation of Radha Vallabha. I was here for the installation of Sri Gaur Nitai, and I remember at the fire sacrifice, Prabhupada sitting in the Vyasasan, and if you see the video, you'll see the temple room packed with devotees, and one devotee's walking around with the plate of the sesame seeds, big plate, and everyone's tossing him. So I'm very close to the fire, being Srila Prabhupada, and many behind me also throwing. And one brahmachari, he gave me this chadar or shawl, and it was bright red. And I just accepted it. He gave it to me to cover my, I guess, whatever, from the ghee and everything. So I put it around me. And all of a sudden, someone tapped me on the shoulder. And he said, Prabhupada wants to know what you're doing wearing this red chadar. And of course, I removed it. But what's really impacted me the most here in Melbourne was in Srila Prabhupada's room at that time. And, you know, by the mercy of, I think, basically one devotee took so many videos here in Australia, Srila Prabhupada in Australia, and I think there's more videos of Prabhupada classroom, Prabhupada in his room talking to teachers, talking to psychiatrists, talking to politicians, anywhere else in the world. You have a very rich history here. It's very wonderful. And I haven't spent a lot of time following Srila Prabhupada videos. And it might have been just a few years ago I saw for the first time, it's a video of Prabhupada taking prasadam upstairs. And if you haven't seen all these videos of Prabhupada, you definitely need to watch them. And Prabhupada's taking, and I believe it's breakfast. And all of a sudden this young devotee, he walks in the room, offers obeisances, and he's talking to Prabhupada, asking him, does he want this, does he want that? It was me. And it was literally seeing it, practically over 40 years later, it had a very big impact on me to see that person who seemed like such a nice devotee. I think, what happened to him? He was so nice, and he's just in Prabhupada's looking, and he's tasting. Prabhupada, when he'd be given a very large plate, sometimes multiple plates, and you could see as he looked and see what he wanted to pick at, you know, take a little of this, take a little of this. And just seeing myself in that situation, I thought, how fortunate was I? How fortunate are all of us to be connected, as Harisari said, to this person, the only one person who actually helped us understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shama Sundar, when he was writing his books, he did his 3 books, Chasing Rhinos with the Swami. And he asked Pradyumna, Sanskrit editor, Prabhupada's whole time traveled with Srila Prabhupada, his Sanskrit editor. And since that time, Pradyumna's had different engagements with the United Nations, and he was given the job, the service of traveling around to all the biggest religious people, Dalai Lama, this person, that person. And Shama Sundar asked him, have you ever met anyone that compared to Srila Prabhupada? And he just looked, he said, no question. There was no one like Srila Prabhupada, not in any. We saw the Pope, the new Pope the other day, you know. All these people, no one compares to what Srila Prabhupada has done for this entire world. So I'll keep it very short. I'm finished. Again, thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
Purjan Prabhu, a 5-minute remembrance.
What's this?
I've got a bell, that's no worries. And there's a clock up here.
Hare Krishna. I'm not going to keep exactly on topic, unfortunately or fortunately, but I saw after my initiation, some months after my initiation, perhaps a year after my initiation, I saw Srila Prabhupada in his apartment at 26 2nd Avenue. And there were many devotees there, and Kirtananda had just come back to the movement, Kirtananda Swami, and he was asking Prabhupada, they had just gotten New Vrindavan, and they were asking Prabhupada about what kind of cows they should get and this kind of thing. And Gorsinda Prabhu was asking, he had a comic that was going to be in the BTG, and that was being discussed. And then everyone it was time to leave, and we were all walking out of Prabhupada's apartment, and I wanted to be the last person out, because I had something I wanted to ask Prabhupada. So I held the door for everyone else, opened the door for everyone else. So everyone left. And Prabhupada was just sitting there. And I asked him, Prabhupada, and this is also meant for all of you. I said, Prabhupada, how can I serve you? And Prabhupada just looked at me and said, take this Krishna consciousness and be happy. Jai. That's what he said. And we should take to Krishna consciousness and be happy. Also, and my own happiness right at this moment is seeing Amoga Prabhu, who I haven't seen in quite a while, because I met Amoga in 1970 in Japan. Prabhupada had sent us to Japan in different ways, myself from New York and Amoga from Los Angeles. So Prabhupada would do that. He would say, you go to Japan, you do this, you do this, you do this. And the devotees were so desirous of doing what Prabhupada said, they just did it. And it was an interesting time, of course, being there. And Prabhupada, he came at different times. So I'm just so happy to see an old friend, such a pious person, such a very special soul, Amoga Prabhu. And third thing has to do with Melbourne. I was here. I came after. I was in Melbourne at the installation, but I came after I had something I had to do foolishly, and I wasn't there for the ceremony. But I came after, and I saw it was still right in this area over here. There was the fire sacrifice was set up, but it was such a feeling to have come just a bit late, and you knew that I knew I was late, and I missed it. But I was here at the 40th, 10 years ago, 40th anniversary, and I took part in the Abhishek of C.C. Gornitai, and that was 10 years ago, and And I remember the thing, and I have the chatter of Nityananda Prabhu still from that. But what really struck me, what I remember most about that event, was this incredible Harinam downtown, where there were hundreds of devotees chanting, and all of downtown Melbourne just stopped and just watching. And I remember one girl was just walking down the street with her friends, and she couldn't help it. She just jumped into the Sankirtan party and was dancing and dancing. And then her friends had to pull her out. But she got caught by in the net of Mahaprabhu's mercy. But the thing that struck me most about that His Holiness Kadamba Kandamaraj, I still have another minute, by the way, was leading that kirtan. And he was so inspiring and inspired. And now he's gone for 2 years already. And looking around and also looking in the mirror, I see so many elderly people who used to be young. And our time is coming, by the way, in case anyone hasn't noticed it. Our time is coming. And I don't know how many of us, I doubt I'm going to be here for the 60th. My meditation at this time in this last phase of my life is what service, what is going to be this perhaps final offering to Srila Prabhupada and his movement. So I just wanted to, just thinking about His Holiness Kadamba Kandamaraj and all the devotees who participated then and are here. This is our chance to make our offerings, so let's do it.
Thank you, Bharajan Prabhu.
Less than 5 minutes.
Less than 5 minutes,
Yeah.
only really, okay.
This is a story about Melbourne Mahaprabhu Mandir. We had problems with the neighbours, would you believe, in 1978. Maybe a little later, this might have been 1980. And Hare Prabhu, then the GBC, asked me to go into the room here, what was the painting room in those days, right? And I was known for being a loud chanter. And my service was to wake up George next door. This is 5 o'clock in the morning, me chanting my japa so loudly. And George got annoyed and he came out into the backyard and started throwing pebbles, gravel, at Hare Sori's window. And then Hare Sori called the police on him. That's one of the more interesting services that I've performed. I don't know why. And I'm not sure what the outcome was. But Hare Sori on other occasions was very kind to me. And we were coming back from Mawilumbar from a festival, and he had a spare seat. And he said, Aniruddha, Prabhu, would you like to come with me? Because he was the GBC and I was just a lowly brahmachari at that point in my career. And I was very flushed and somewhat impressed, I guess, or inspired that I could travel with the GBC back to Melbourne. And another story. So Hare Sori was very kind to me then. Another story was in 1989, I was told by somebody whose name I won't mention, but I was going to Vrindavan for the VIHE, and I was warned, watch out for Burijan Das. And I won't say what it was how he was described, but I was warned to be careful of his association. Right? And then when I got to Vrindavan, I found Burijan Prabhu was a very wonderful devotee, very encouraging. He wasn't at all like he'd been described. And so in that way, both Hare Sori and especially Burijan Prabhu were very, very kind to me and supported me in my Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Jai. Before we hear from one of the ladies of the early 80s, early 70s, I'd just like to put the microphone over there, but just before that, we got a message from Ugrashrava, who I think is still in India, but he was one of the senior devotees here in Melbourne Temple as well, served Prabhupada as well as Shruti Kirti has done. So, would you like to just read out that message, Prabhupada?
Sure, Ugrashrava. Yeah, Ugrashrava's in Gold Coast, but he just sent a message. And he wanted to mention that in the beginning, Madhavisa Maharaj and Ugrashrava and Srila Prabhupada looked at a different property to this. And it was nearby, and it was, they offered $1 million. But what happened was a developer snatched it from underneath them and they lost it. So then they found this place, at Dank Street, and they were organising the purchase of it, and the Christians caught hold of it, and they figured out that it was the Hare Krishna movement, and who, according to them, worshipped the devil, and which is the Christian concept in those days. And so the purchase actually fell through, and a developer at that point of intrigue snatched it up. And so this temple was gone. And but what happened was Ugrashrava was the spiritual sky salesman. He used to support the temple by selling incense. And he used to support the temple by buying incense from the spiritual sky in Sydney and never paying his bill. That's because it was for Krishna. What could you do? Anyway, so long story short, he was in a shop selling incense, and one of the shopkeepers said, I know the developer that brought that building, and he's gone bankrupt. So, you know, just, you never know. So Ugrashrava went to see him and offered him $50,000 less than what he paid for it, and the developer snatched it up, and it became the Dank Street Temple. Just one more story, please. I just have to glorify a wonderful devotee, Madhavisa Maharaj. He was just such a splendid devotee, and incredible kirtan, incredible stamina. And so during Rath Yatra, he organised always the huge Rath Yatra. And it'd be nice to see that again, actually. And so we were at Rath Yatra, and there was security, and Ugrashrava knew all the thugs in Melbourne. So he had these great big bouncers everywhere. And but what was happening was there was a huge kirtan. There was basically thousands of people in the street. And we were crowding around Prabhupada. There was many devotees. There was, and we were crowding around Prabhupada. But all of a sudden, there was this closing in. These people were closing in, and you know, it seemed to be on purpose, and it was starting to be a big struggle. And you can imagine in a crowd of 1,000 people. So Madhavisa, he's leading the kirtan, and he starts to swirl around Prabhupada. And as he swirls around Prabhupada, he kicks this man, kicks that man, kicks the next man. He's swirling, and he's just kicking everybody back. So kick, 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 and the kirtan became even more ecstatic. Hare Krishna.
Thanks, Jai Dharma. So now we'll listen to a couple of stories of impacts that Melbourne Temple has had on some of the ladies from the 70s. 5 minutes, please.
You go. Well, my senior god sisters all said no. I went, okay, I'll take the microphone.
Chickens.
So I'll keep it brief as I can. So end of 72, a dear friend of mine had become a Hare Krishna. And I'd heard about this, so it was around the era where, the Hare Krishnas, no one knew much about them. He might be brainwashed. It was a little bit before the major brainwashing kind of campaign. So I went along to Burnett Street, 14 Burnett Street, for the first Sunday feast that I'd ever attended. It was before the deities were there. And it was very interesting, but the wonderful thing about it is that I was given a copy of the Gita. So I would take the Gita home and I would read it, write down all my questions, and then we had the little shop front in Little Lonsdale Street, if that's correct, and I would present my questions to Madhavisa Maharaj and say, okay, here are my questions, and he'd answer them, then I'd go away, read more Gita, write more questions and come back. And in that way I started to visit the temple. And this was in 14 Burnett Street, as I said. Radha Vallabha hadn't been installed. And I joined just a few weeks, or maybe a month before Prabhupada was due to come. And so Melbourne has held very great affection in my heart, because that was where I first saw Srila Prabhupada and first had ever seen deities. And Radha Vallabha was being installed. My eldest brother had helped build the altar in Burnett Street, Frankie. And at the previous anniversary we had here, I asked all the devotees, would you please pray to Radha Vallabha that my brother would get prasadam and some devotee association. And then a month later, Bhakta Prabhu called me and he said, there's a devotee family moved right 2 doors up from your brother. And that devotee family became very close to my brother and would take him prasadam every day. And he would allow them to come and pick flowers for their Jagannath deity. So by the mercy of Radha Vallabha, my eldest brother had lots of prasadam and lots of nice association. So first thing, Srila Prabhupada, I won't talk about that now, but it had such a major impact on my life. Because as one of our speech givers was saying, when we first joined, it was always every second sentence was Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada said that, Srila Prabhupada said this, Srila Prabhupada likes that, Srila Prabhupada doesn't like that. So I'd just been in the temple very short time, and I started to get very worried. What happens when Srila Prabhupada arrives, because he was due to come? What happens if I don't feel the same way as all these other devotees? That when I see Srila Prabhupada, I'm wondering what's all the fuss about. So everyone had gone to the airport to pick up Prabhupada, and there were just a few of us left in Burnett Street. And then I heard this sound, Srila Prabhupada's here, Srila Prabhupada's here. And I just finished bathing, getting on my sari, and if you know, of course, in Melbourne, you know what a terrace house looks like. Narrow facade, you open the door, a few feet in, there's a staircase. And so I ran to the top of the staircase just as Srila Prabhupada, they'd opened the door for Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada stood framed in that doorway like the most transcendental. Well, I had never seen a transcendental person before, but when I saw Srila Prabhupada, I recognised his transcendence and his purity, and he was framed in the doorway. It couldn't have been a more special occasion. This was the first sight of my eternal spiritual master. And when I saw him, my conviction became very strong that yes, Prabhupada's everything everyone had always been telling me about Srila Prabhupada. And then, of course, Radha Vallabha installation was very wonderful. I was also there. And my mother and my eldest brother had a chance to meet Prabhupada then as well. And, of course, Hari Sori Prabhu was there in Melbourne Temple and, very strong preacher. And it's a very funny story. I decided to leave and I was sneaking out the stairs with my little bag, and Hari Sori stopped me on the staircase, and I had my friends waiting for me at the front, and he preached to me for an hour. don't go, don't go. And it was very strong preaching. But because I'd already arranged with those friends, they were waiting out the front for me, I felt really obliged that I should go with them. But not long after, I went to India and then rejoined the devotees in Vrindavan a year before the Krishna Balaram temple was installed. So thank you, Hare, sorry, for attempting to save me. By Prabhupada's mercy, I'm still here. And Melbourne Temple has very, very deep affection I have for Radha Ballabha, Jagannath Baladev, Subhadra, Gaurnitai in my heart. So thank you very much for putting on this wonderful festival, and I look forward to hearing more stories. Jai. Hare Bol.
Jai. Thank you, Krishna Rupa.
Hare Krishna, my name is Ambika Dasi. I joined in 1971, along with Jai Dharma, and 12 of us joined. And Prabhupada said we were all friends in our last life. So I was here in 1973 for the installation of Shri Shri Radha Ballabha in Burnett Street. And actually, I didn't bring them, but at home, when Srila Prabhupada actually offered a white carnation in the Arctic after the deities were installed, and I took out 2 petals. Unfortunately, they were very mouldy so many years later, but I still have them from when Srila Prabhupada offered that gardenia. And then we were in Sydney, so we came down for that. And later in 79, I was here for 3 years, and my service then was dressing Lord Jagannath, very beautiful. I spent some time at the candle factory. There was a candle factory run by Bhaktivedanta, and we had such a good time in that candle factory, I can't tell you. Everybody was such jokers. Ayodhya was there. There was Sadbhuj Prabhu from Mayapur, he was there, and Jugal Kishore, and it was it was a very sort of nice time. In fact, I remember the day that Sadbhuj and Jugal Kishore got initiated. They came back to the candle factory, and Ayodhya said, "What's your name?" He said, "Oh, it's Jugal Kishore." "Oh, that fits, Yugala," he said. Yugala Kishore. Anyway, it was very nice. I loved being in Melbourne. I loved serving Lord Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra. They're so beautiful. Sometimes I dressed Radha Ballabha when Srila was off the altar. Kurma was the head cook. It was fantastic. It was all so organised. A very nice community, very close, and it was a very special time in my life. And I'm very happy to be here to celebrate this anniversary of Sri Sri Gaurnitai's installation. Hare Krishna.
Jai. Thank you, Ambika. Can I now ask Amoga Prabhu to say a few words? Amoga Prabhu?
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I'm fumbling over in my mind trying to figure out what thing to say. I'm Amoga Das. I came from California. I was a devotee in Los Angeles in 1970. My initiation was the 11th of May 1970, which just passed a few days ago. On the exact same day was Lord Nrsimha's birthday. Does that mean anything? Well, the thing is, many things that happen in a devotee's life become very confidential, very difficult to share with people, which is the most impact. And then I feel like, well, I can't talk about that. It's too private. But we were talking in Perth just last week, and devotees, I was posing the fact that I get puffed up if I say something good about myself, and Krishna doesn't like that. But when Prabhupada was here, and I think it was 74, I wanted to give him some presents. So I went and asked Mataji at the deity department to make a book cover for Prabhupada's Bhagavatams, because I heard a couple of days before Prabhupada said, "Don't touch the Bhagavatam to the floor." So I maybe imagined that that meant that the devotees should not touch Prabhupada's Bhagavatam to the floor when he came in to give class. And so I organized this really nice jari pink silk book cover and another scarf, wool scarf, and mangoes from down in the city. There was this store that was selling in the middle of the cold winter, selling mangoes brought down from Cairns or somewhere, really nice mangoes. So I came to see Srila Prabhupada, and he was talking about something, and all of the place was packed. It was Uga Shraba's house, but there was lots of space. And I was just sitting with my Back to Godhead box, and I was thinking, I got some really nice things to give to Prabhupada this time. Got some really nice gifts. I'm really happy I got these really nice stuff. And so Prabhupada stopped talking and he looked over at me as he often did. He said, "So, what is this?" So I asked him what I got in my box, because people didn't all come with a box. So I said, "Srila Prabhupada, I heard you say that we shouldn't touch the Bhagavatam to the floor." So I don't touch my Bhagavatam to the floor. But Srila Prabhupada, I put my Bhagavatam on the bookshelf. So then 2-3 times I tried to explain myself, and then Srila Kirti told some similar things. Prabhupada stopped me, he slashed me, I couldn't speak. As soon as I would try to speak, he'd say something strong, and so then I just sat there, and the devotees were cracking up, they were laughing, and I can still remember Churu like falling over on his knee, all sitting laughing at me at the thing, and I just stopped talking, and so all I can do now is stop talking, can't say anything. And maybe if I was a cockroach, I could call it a hole. So some time passed, and it seemed like a long time, and then he says, "Then?" He knew there was something more in the box. So I pulled out the scarf, and I thought, one of the devotee ladies needed your beautiful scarf. And I very timidly gave it to him, he put it on his desk. And then I had the mangoes down the bottom of the box. So I also brought some mangoes for you. Mango is the king of fruit. This is a gift. So that was, I don't know, it took 5 minutes, but that was really a momentous occasion for me. And then Srila Kirti, they called Srila Kirti from the kitchen. "Yes, Srila Prabhupada, I want mango in my milk tonight. I want this mango put in the mango in milk, becomes mango milk." So I realized later that you offer something with pride, then Krishna doesn't like it. But by the time I got to the bottom of the box, I didn't have any pride left. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Okay, so now we're going to get a male and a female from the 80s. So any volunteers from the male side first off? Somebody that has an experience from the 80s, how Melbourne Temple has affected you. Do you want me to start pointing somebody out? Who have we got? Yadu. Yeah, Yadu Shrestha Prabhu. No? Okay, swinging over to the ladies. Chandrakoti. This is from the 80s. Please stand up who you are and when you served here in Melbourne Temple and when you got initiated. Can somebody pass over the other microphone, please? We'll come back to the 70s also, but be prepared. I'm going to ask somebody also from the 90s and the zeros and the tens.
Hare Krishna, my name is Chandrakoti and I joined this temple in 1982. I joined the Brahmacharya ashram, which was above the old kitchen, so where the computer room, treasury, photocopy room, that was our ladies' ashram. I did various services. I remember working at Gopal's before we had the Swanson Street restaurant. It was in Flinders Lane in the basement, and it was all you can eat for free. I also did quite a bit of pujari services, and anyway, and also milk sweets. I cooked the milk sweets many times. About 10 years after I joined the temple, I met one of my school friends, because I grew up in Middle Park and I went to Albert Park High School. And I met this friend on the corner of Kerford Road and Jank Street. And he saw me dressed in a sari and tilak, and he said, "Oh, you became a Hare Krishna." And I said, "Yeah, I became a full-time Hare Krishna." And then he said to me, "I remember," he said, I lived here in this house on the corner of Jank Street and Kerford Road. And he said, "I remember seeing your leader come many years ago. And he came from a car, he walked across the footpath and to the gate of the temple. And he was very short, he was wearing orange, and he had a walking stick, and his skin was very dark." And I was thinking, is that Srila Prabhupada? Did he see Srila Prabhupada? And then I asked him, what year was that? And he said, I don't remember the year, but I remember I was about 12 or 13 years old. So I started calculating. I was born in 1963, so 1963 plus 12 years is 1975. So I concluded that he actually saw Srila Prabhupada physically from a distance, but that's a very rare thing to do for my generation. So I felt like I also grew up in Middle Park and been in the area. Why was he the lucky one to see Srila Prabhupada and not me? And I started to think, well, I joined in 1982. I first came to the temple in 1981. And Prabhupada left the planet in 1977. So I just missed out by 5-6 years. But then I remember this really impacted me. The first time that I stepped into the temple room, I had no idea about Hare Krishna or who Prabhupada was. I didn't even know his name. But I remember I walked inside the temple and I was on my own. It was after school, so it was about 10 to 4 in the afternoon. Nobody was here. And I came before Srila Prabhupada, and at first I didn't realize that he was a Murti, but then I did. But I felt so much compassion and care emanating from him, and that really impacted me. So after, I always felt that I missed out on the chance of seeing Srila Prabhupada, like my friend Sam. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. But Srila Prabhupada's always present through his Murti form, through his books, through his teachings, through his temples, and the association of devotees and devotional service. And that is really the main thing, that we take advantage of that, Srila Prabhupada's presence now and always. And that's what I wanted to share.
Thank you, Chandrakoti. Is there another lady that would like to speak from the 80s? Come on, don't be bashful. Asesha Sadhani, perhaps? Or Bhakti Devi? Yeah, you were the 70s. Okay. You got one? Haribol.
Yeah, we're from 79, but who's counting?
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, I actually, name is Bhakti Devi Dasi, for those who don't know me. I joined the Melbourne Temple in 1979, actually by the mercy of my husband, who I met in the street. I had questions that nobody could answer, not even the nuns or the priests. They would always run the other way when I was asking questions. And one day I decided I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, so I went, I thought, and the only thing I was interested in doing was art. So I wanted to go and check out RMIT because I'd heard they'd give an arts course. And basically speaking, to try and cut a long story short, I was going into the city. I asked the man at the station when I got there in Flinders Street, can you show me the way to RMIT? And for 20 years, I thought, that stupid guy sent me the wrong way. Because I was walking down towards the flower clock. Yeah? Down towards Botanical Gardens, the flower clock. And for 20 years, I didn't realize. And then all of a sudden, I realized, wait a minute, it was probably my fault after all, because I must have asked the guy at the station, can you tell me what RMIT is? Because I want to study art. And so he'd sent me to the Victorian College of the Arts, which is just opposite the flower clock. So I was near the flower clock and I was thinking, there's not a university here, he sent me the wrong way. So the first person that I saw, I pulled him up and I said, excuse me sir, can you tell me what RMIT is? And that was Bhaktivedanta. So that's how I met my husband, and he brought me to Krishna consciousness from there. And my parents and everybody else in the family thought the marriage would never last, because, oh, you met him on the street, this marriage will never last. Meanwhile, 46 years later. Anyway, so then we went to Victorian College of the Arts, then we went to RMIT, and then my husband said, are you hungry? Have you had lunch yet? I know this great little place is vegetarian and it's free. And I thought, who in their right mind set up a vegetarian restaurant and gives the food away for free? How can you make any money doing that? But it was the devotees, of course. And we went upstairs, and upstairs, it was in Little Burke Street in Chinatown. Upstairs there was Bhaktivedanta Prabhu. And I didn't hear this, but Bhaktivedanta Prabhu asked my husband, so is this your wife? Because of course if you come with a lady or a girlfriend, she's got to be your wife, right? So anyway, so is this your wife? And Prabhu goes, no, but she will be. So that's how we met. And then, of course, talking about back to Godheads and how much influence and impact they have, that was the first day I was given a Back to Godhead magazine. And I'd had all these questions that nobody could answer. Who is God? What happens when you die? What does God look like? What do you do when you get to heaven? Do you just sit in it like in a church and in the seats in the pews and look at God? I can't imagine doing that for the rest of my eternity. It's so boring. So, and then in the Back to Godhead that I got that day, I remember reading that same Back to Godhead over and over and over again until the covers fell off. Because there all of a sudden were all the answers. And so The thing that I most appreciate about Krishna consciousness is the knowledge that Srila Prabhupada imparted to us, and the association of devotees, and especially here in Melbourne Temple, especially in the early days, things were a little bit fanatic. Nowadays we all see each other and we're all hugging, and that wasn't the case in those days. Even husband and wife couldn't hold hands in the temple, right? So it was very, very austere in those days. But the thing that I appreciate most about those days were the many, many very compassionate devotees that were here, such as Ambika Devi Dasi, such as Ramprasad Prabhu, who is not here, but Bhakti Prabhu will mention later. And, many, many devotees who were so Rukmavati, all these devotees were always so kind to me. And that was what really impacted me. And, so thank you, everybody. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Actually, just one very quickly. The other thing that I really appreciate with Srila Prabhupada is that he gave us so many different ways that we can serve Krishna. Right? So many different ways.
Thank you, Bhakti Devi Dasi. So now again, Virabhadra? Oh, well, I had Kaliya Krishna, and then we can go to Vira if we like. Go straight to Vira. Done. Virabhadra Prabhu.
Do you have another mic over there? Okay.
Hare Krishna. My name is Virabhadra Das, and I first came to this temple in 1980. And just as he handed me the microphone, Bhakti Prabhu was the first one that handed me some japa beads and said, "Do you know the Maha Mantra?" And I gave some garbled combination of, Hare Rama, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, something or other. And he goes, "No, it goes like this." And he specifically taught me. But the backstory to how I actually came to be at the temple is a sequence of encounters with different devotees over a number of years. So, I'd heard a radio show about where a devotee was interviewed, and he was describing what it was like living in Burnett Street, how crowded it was. And if you were late coming in, you got to sleep on the stairs. And then, because you got to bed late, you're also one of the first to get woken up because the other devotees were coming down the stairs to go to the one bathroom out the back where you had to queue up and whatever. Anyway, but I'd heard that. That was probably one of my earliest connections with the devotees. And of course, they all talked about their spiritual teacher, Srila Prabhupada, in these interviews. And then when I first came into actual contact with real living, breathing devotees that talked to me and gave me books and whatever else, was at the Breadbow Down to Earth Festival. And so there was Mahaksha, who gave me a big silver Krishna book, which we hear about the book sitting on the counter or the coffee table or whatever. So that book was there with this silver cover and this, picture of, Krishna standing there, looking at me from the mantelpiece where I kept it. I can remember Yasa and Mahotsa doing the boatman and the scholar play. But the significant one from that time was, it was the last day of 1977, so it's only a month and a half after Prabhupada's departure, and it's the end of the festival, and we're all packing up to leave, and then there's this one devotee. I just was talking to him, and he was standing at the front door of the bus that they had there, and he says, "Why don't you come back to the temple with us? We're going back to Melbourne Temple at 197 Dang Street in Albert Park." I specifically remember him saying the address. And I said, "Oh no, I'm meeting friends at Nariel Creek for New Year's Eve folk music festival," which is where I first met Puridas as Paul Sullivan. He was not yet joined the temple, and he was a performer there. He was associated with people in the music fraternity and so on. So anyway, and in the meantime, I'd been to school with Bhakta previously, so we knew him. We played a bit of basketball together, we'd done some art together, and he took me to TM, many years before, and I'd seen him at one point. We'd gone to our high school art teacher's place, and at that time he was talking with his other friend Paul about becoming a TM teacher. So and then I didn't see him for about 1.5 years, and the next time I saw him was with the Harinam party on Burke Street, between, heading down towards Swanson Street. And I remember Jai Prabhupada gave me a BT magazine, these infamous BT Magic magazines that sort of have so much potency for so many of us. And then I was talking to Bhakta there in the Harinam party, and another friend of mine, after the Harinam party left, and he's walking with me, and then after we had that encounter, he's just walking along beside me, and he's just banging his head on my shoulder, going, "Why? Has Bert become a Hare Krishna?" Clive later came to my initiation in this very room. Anyway, stayed the whole night at the temple, actually. Anyway, so I was studying architecture at RMIT. I wasn't following a mainstream path within that course, so I had to make a presentation not to my studio group but to another group. And anyway, it didn't go so well, and I came back to where I was staying on St Kilda Road, and I was feeling a bit despondent. So I started walking around Albert Park Lake, which I was quite familiar with because I used to jog a lap of that every morning in the early pre-dawn. Anyway, so I started walking around Albert Park Lake, and this thought just came to my mind: what am I doing? Where am I going? And then, in that moment, I hear Prahlad Bhakta's voice in my ear: Hare Krishna Temple, 197 Dank Street. Why did that come back to me as clear as a day as when he said that to me 2.5 years prior at the Breadbow Down to Earth Festival? So I go, Dank Street, where is that? So from Albert Park, I walked straight up Kerford Road, got to the corner down here. Oh, here's Dank Street. Which way do I go? I turned left. I walked up to the gate here, pushed the door open, came in, and as other people said, as I heard Case was saying this morning when he first came, there was nobody around. So I just sort of wandered through whatever the garden was there. And at the time, Renuka Sutta was out in the car park area welding the back gates. So when I came to the temple, Renuka's the first devotee. I say, "Oh, what do you want? What are you doing here?" Anyway, so anyway, then I met Satyavrata, and he's talking to me. Then I got to go soak faster now. Then that was Jayananda's disappearance day that year, and so that's not your bell, okay. So anyway, then we're sitting down, and I asked, "Where's Bert?" And they said, "Oh, he's at the counterpack." So he came, and he's sitting down next to me for prasadam. He's not taking any of the pakoras or the chips that Renuka had gone from the welding to the kitchen to cook all these boxes and boxes of pakoras and chips. Bhakta wasn't taking them because he'd broken a codicy, so and he's explaining all this to me, and I'm going, "What?" Anyway, so then they told me it's Nrsimha Chattardasi the next day. So I came for that. I can remember all the details of that, who spoke, who gave class, different people. Korma gave a class. There was a massive drama. And then Ayodhya was preaching to me outside the door here. And, just going over stuff, and I'm getting it all. And then Balaram sent Aniruddha down to tell Ayodhya to let that boy go home. So then Ayodhya retires, and then Aniruddha starts on me. And so he said, "Well, why don't you stay?" I said, "Well, I haven't got anything. I've only got what I stand in. I've got to go to uni at, I've got to be at class at 9 o'clock in the morning." I go, "No, and this going backwards and forwards." Anyway, eventually we get to the back gate, and I walk out the gate. I take 2 steps back into the lane, and I jump straight back in. As soon as I took 2 steps outside the temple, I realised I didn't want to be out there. I wanted to be in here. So I did a full morning program. I'm just going to say one thing about Mongalati. So I'm standing pretty much over there near where the mantra board is now, looking at Gaur Nitai. I'm not sure if that Prabhupada painting was still there. I remember heavy red maroon curtains around most of the walls. But, I didn't know Sanskrit at all, so we're singing this, Srila Prabhupada, Joe Prabhupada and all this, and then Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam, and I'm just hearing in my mind, from everything that everybody's been telling me and how to chant, I'm just saying, one day we'll all sing Hare Krishna with them. So that day I did the full morning program. I chanted 16 rounds from that day onwards, and I've missed a few days since, but anyway, Hare Krishna, Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Also, Virabhadra eventually got married to a wonderful devotee called Yashoda, and she was also a school friend, and she was a wonderful devotee here in Melbourne for some time as well, right, Vera?
Yeah, I gave some details.
Yeah, terrific. Now we need another lady to have a... Now, yes, it can be from any time. Yes, please. Can somebody pass over a microphone? You got it, Jai.
Hare Krishna. This is 1970.
Mataji, your name too, right? So everybody knows.
My name is Atita Gunadasi. Okay, and I stayed in the Melbourne Temple in 1976. Okay, so it was really wonderful when Srila Prabhupada was coming. Everybody was so excited. Srila Prabhupada's coming, Srila Prabhupada's coming. And we all wanted to go to the airport. But one devotee said to me, no, it's better if you do service for Srila Prabhupada than actually going to see him. So he said, what I want you to do is make sandalwood paste for him. And I assure you that you'll be able to put the sandalwood paste on Srila Prabhupada's forehead. And I was thinking about it, yeah, that sounds wonderful. But then I said, no, I really want to see Srila Prabhupada. So I said to him, oh, if it's such wonderful service, why don't you stay back and make the sandalwood paste? So we both jumped into the car and went to the airport. So we got to the airport, and Srila Prabhupada had come at least 3 times before, and there was 4 doors. So he'd come through the first door, the second door, the third door, and so we're like, oh, he'll come through the 4th door. So we all stood around and we were chanting and dancing. But Srila Prabhupada, he can do whatever he likes. He came through the first door. And we couldn't believe it. We couldn't believe it when we saw him. It was like he was about 12 inches off the ground. It was incredible. And he had this golden aura around him. So anyway, they whisked him off to a room so the press could talk to him. So we went back to the temple because I thought, I want to be there when Srila Prabhupada comes. So I picked out a rose, and I was thinking that I'll be able to give it to him. So I noticed here on the side, it's all concrete now, but it used to be grass. So I was standing there on the grass, and then Srila Prabhupada came, and I'm pretty sure he was by himself. There must have been devotees behind him. So anyway, I went up to him, and I presented a rose to him, and I was able to actually touch his hand, and it was very soft. And then I thought, oh, I was a Pujari assistant then, and I thought, I really should pay my obeisances now, but it was very muddy. So I didn't, and I, lament about that. So the next day was initiation, and it was in this temple room. So so many devotees, about 25 devotees were going to get initiated. And there was a little girl about 4 years old, and she always used to hold my hand. So what happened is she came and she held my hand, and she had, I remember even now, she had a pink colored sari on. So what happened is Srila Prabhupada initiated many devotees, and then it was time for me to get initiated. And I'd been praying and praying. It was my spiritual prayer. Please, Srila Prabhupada, please personally initiate me. So in those days, Srila Prabhupada really wasn't coming to Australia that much. He didn't really, he was getting a little more feeble. And we were all surprised that he was coming. And anyway, but I was praying, Srila Prabhupada, please, please, personally initiate me. And so many devotees got initiated, and then it was time for me to go up. And that little girl, she grabbed my hand, and she went up to see Srila Prabhupada. And we both paid our obeisances. In those days, the ladies paid full dandavats. And we paid our full dandavats, and then the little girl got up and said, Srila Prabhupada, does that mean I'm initiated now? And he said, no. And then he said, he looked at the piece of paper with all the names on, and he said, Louise, your name is now Anita. And he said, no, it isn't. It's not Anita. Anita means without a path. So I'm going to give you the name Atita Guna. And then I realized Srila Prabhupada has personally initiated me. So I'm saying this because I want you to understand that all your spiritual desires actually will be fulfilled. So the next day we were going to the botanical gardens. So Srila Prabhupada liked to go on his morning walks. So we went to the botanical gardens, and all the ladies were walking behind the men, and the very intelligent ones were picking up the leaves that Srila Prabhupada was walking on. And then there was a devotee here, Gopal Dasi, and she grabbed me by the hand. She said, no, we're not walking behind. We're going to go right up front and be with Srila Prabhupada. So she grabbed me by the hand, and we ran up, and then Srila Prabhupada, he was standing in front of a camphor tree. Actually, we went to the botanical gardens looking for it yesterday. But anyway, so he was standing in front of a camphor tree, and he took a leaf and a flower, and he scrunched it up in his hands, and then he asked, what is this? And then, in the botanical gardens, there's always signs what the tree or flower is. So they said, Srila Prabhupada, it's a camphor tree. And then Srila Prabhupada said, oh, camphor, that's Srimati Radharani's favorite smell, favorite odor. So then Srila Prabhupada started. What is everyone? Time's up. Oh, okay. So I'm in anxiety, but Srila Prabhupada was talking about anxiety. Okay? So I believe it's Chitta Hari Prabhu went up and said to him, Srila Prabhupada,
We're supposed to be in Vaikuntha, and Vaikuntha means without anxiety. But I find that I'm always in anxiety. And Srila Prabhupada said, yes, you can pick what sort of in this material world you'll be in anxiety, but you get to pick which kind of anxiety you want. Do you want to be in material anxiety or spiritual anxiety? And then, and then a little bit later, I realized what anxiety really was. Okay, so they said to me, Mataji, we want you to wash Srila Prabhupada's cloth. Okay, so I said, oh yeah, I'm very, very happy to do this service. So I put in hot soapy water into the tub, and at that time I was Korma's assistant, and I was able to get any kind of oils or anything like that I wanted. So I thought, oh, I'll put sandalwood oil with Srila Prabhupada's cloth, and it'll smell beautiful. So I put the sandalwood oil in the hot soapy water, and I washed it, and then it dried, and then I ironed it, and what did I see? Big blobs of oil, and I went, no, I can't give this back to Srila Prabhupada. His cloth with big blobs of oil on it. So what I did was I went around to all the householders. In those days, there was only about 10% of the devotees were householders, and the rest were brahmacharis and brahmacharinis. So I went and I begged to all the householders, give me some money. I need to get some kind of soap in order to wash Srila Prabhupada's cloth. So I went down to the store, and I got, this potion, and then I put it in the water, in the hot soapy water, and thinking that Srila Prabhupada's cloth would be, nicely washed, and all the oil would come out. Okay. So then what happened is I washed it. I put the potion in. I washed it in the hot soapy water, and there was not enough time to dry it, so I ironed it dry. And when I ironed it dry, what happened? There was big blobs of oil everywhere. So what I did was I went to see Hare Sorry Prabhu, and I said, what am I going to do? I've washed this cloth, Srila Prabhupada's cloth, and there's big blobs of oil in it. What am I going to do? And he goes, oh, don't worry. There's always big blobs of oil in Srila Prabhupada's cloth, because, he does so many services with oil and things like that. So then I realized, oh, I was really in spiritual anxiety.
Yeah,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Just a reminder for those people, tomorrow also at the Timber Yard, we've got an hour-long or over an hour-long session of open mic. So it'll be the same sort of thing. So if you want to relate some of the ecstasies that you've experienced here in Melbourne Temple, you'll get that opportunity too. We've got 10 minutes left before lunch. I'd like to call on somebody else from the 80s again, and my friend Srila Prabhu has offered to say a few words.
Hare Krishna. My name is Srila. My wife and I live at ISKCON Bhāgavatam. So my first experience with devotees was when I was in Form 3. I was attending school in a suburb of Geelong called Nor Lane, and I was going home with, or going back to a friend's house, and we met a devotee on the street. It's probably 1972, and he had these big silver Krishna books, and it was a really interesting technique they had for distributing books. He said, oh, we're handing these out today. And so my friend and I grabbed it, and we thought, great, free. And then he said, we're asking for $20. We were school kids, $20, that was like 10 weeks pocket money. It was like a lot of money, so we gave it back. And then my father had died when I was in Form 1, I think, yeah. And so it was difficult for my mother to raise 4 boys, so she sent me to Melbourne to live with my auntie and uncle. And I remember I was in Melbourne. I don't know if anyone remembers. Like you've got Swanston Street, then up the hill of Burke Street on Swanston Street. There used to be all the theatres on the left-hand side. There was a big high-rise on the right-hand side. Sorry. And so I had just come out from watching. I think it was the concert for Bangladesh with George Harrison, and then I went down to the corner of Burke and Swanston. I was going to go back up and catch the train out home. I was living in Noble Park at the time, and then I saw the Harinam party on the corner, so that was the first experience I had. And then I remember years later, I was living in Coffs Harbour, and I used to go regularly to the farm at New Govardhan. And then there was Chakra, and you, and Ioja Dave, and the whole team. They used to come up every year and do all these plays, fantastic play. I mean, those festivals were a lot of fun. I have to say, they're a lot of fun. And I remember that Chakra, I really struck up a friendship with Chakra, and he convinced me to come down to Melbourne at the time. So my partner at the time, we moved down to Melbourne, moved to the temple, and that was probably 1984, 3, something like that. Yeah, early 80s. And my remembrances of Melbourne were just, it was very regulated. Balaram was a super regulated person. You could practically tell the time by when he came to the temple, when he chanted his rounds, when he left the temple. He was really, really regulated. But also, one of the things I learnt about Prabhupada, from Balaram was about Prabhupada, because he really had a lot of consciousness of Prabhupada. He showed me how Prabhupada taught him how to follow chadar and all these different types of things. And I still follow my chadar the same way today. Very practical, the way Prabhupada folded his chadar, because it's easy to put over your shoulder. It's easy to unfold and wrap yourself with it. But then also, there was always lots of activity here in the Melbourne Temple. With, I was thinking about this last night. Every week we used to go to the same car park and go on Harinam. It was Friday night. Every week, same thing. And it was great, Jnana Samudra was out the front dancing. I mean, it wasn't quite dancing like that last night, but still a lot of energy. Huh? But and the festivals here, I remember Dhanvantari Prabhu and Bhakta used to make these amazing floats for Mumbai. I remember going down and helping them with that. And then also my first Janmashtami here was quite an experience also. I remember that. But the main thing for me was just the regulation, but also the focus on the deities. That's really something that stayed with me throughout my life. I remember making these doors that are still on the deity room a long time ago. And when we're out on Sankirtan, I think it was out in somewhere out Lakes Entrance or something. I was actually with Prana. We're out in Lakes Entrance. And I met these people who were selling opals, and they didn't have any money. They didn't want to spend money. So what I did a swap with them for what we were doing, the paraphernalia Sankirtan were doing, and they gave me these opals, and I brought them back to the temple, and I showed Balaram, and he said, "Get something made for Radharani," and he gave me the contact of a jeweler. Went into town, gave him the opals, got some diamonds in it, and as far as I know, Radharani's still wearing that. And so it's really nice how I felt that Balaram was acting in a way to try and get us more and more connected. And I've always felt that here in this temple. There's been this really nice connection with the deities, but also the regularity. That's one thing I've learnt a lot from this temple is regularity, and that was always the thing that was very strong for me here. So, Hare Krishna.
For those of you that don't know, Srila Prabhu is the international deity minister. So from his early beginnings here at Radha Vallabha Temple, he now looks after the deity worship throughout the world to make sure it's going correctly. Ah, Subbalakshmi is here. Hare Krishna. Look, we've only got 5 minutes left in Subbalakshmi. You are the lucky last. Okay? So thank you very much. Just introduce yourself and...
Yes, I'm Subbalakshmi Devidyasi. I was initiated by Srila Prabhupada in 1974 at our former temple, which was the Burnett Street Temple in St Kilda. And as has been touched on by several of the devotees, it was a very small temple and it was very crowded, especially when Prabhupada came. And so he came in 1974, we had put on a Rath-yatra, and he danced at the Rath-yatra. It was amazing. And then 2 days later, a handful of us were initiated, and that was very ecstatic. Now, because I've only got a few minutes, I'm going to fast forward and tell a Sankirtan story. Because the great thing about 74, 75, the deity worship was already so wonderful. We had fabulous cooks like Dwapayana Prabhu, but Prabhupada had really been emphasising book distribution. And we had wonderful devotees out distributing books every day. And so that was Prabhupada's ecstasy, and he was really pleased that a lot of remittances were going to the BBT in Los Angeles, and people were saying, how can they be distributing so many books? How can they be, putting so much money into the BBT account? And it has to be admitted that the exchange rate was very favourable for us at the time, but still, it was very exciting. Now, once again, I'll skip forward. Very fortunately, I was able to go to the opening of the Krishna Balaram temple in 1975. Prabhupada was there. He was so happy that devotees, his disciples, had come from all over the world. One quick memory is that he would ring the bell on the side of the deities, and the devotees were circumambulating, and Prabhupada just had this huge smile. He was so happy. So after that, we went to Hyderabad for a Pandal program, and there were huge pandals put out, and devotees were chanting on the stage, waiting for Prabhupada to come in, and there were thousands of people. So the Sankirtan devotees went into the crowds to distribute books while we were waiting. And there was one particular incident where I had stopped a rather tall gentleman and put a book in his hands, asked him for a donation. That was what we did. And he was just smiling at me, and he wasn't giving me a donation, and I was really quite annoyed. But I think he might have thought it was funny, because here I was, a white woman in sari and tilak, and I'm trying to sell him a book in a language that I personally don't speak. So he was sort of joking around with me. And but I was holding my ground. I was saying, no, just please give a donation. It goes looking after the temple, and it goes to distribute more books. And we also feed people in Bangladesh. Actually at that stage, the Bangladeshis were coming into Mayapur to be fed. There were huge prasada programs. Anyway, so I'm just holding my ground, and then as it happens, I feel something on the back of my legs, and I look around and it's a car, and I think, oh look, he's just about to give a donation. I'm not going to move. So that the car comes up even closer, and gently but insistently is on the back of my legs. Anyway, eventually he pulls out his money and he gives me quite a generous donation, and I thank him very much, move to the side, and then the car comes through, and in the back seat is Srila Prabhupada with this huge smile on his face, and doing pranams So it was just a moment of real ecstasy. So that days, as we say, those were the days, my friend, we thought they'd never end. Prabhupada was just so happy at that time. Thank you.
Haribol. Thank you all very much for your remembrances. There'll be more chance for others that haven't had a chance to say their little time that meant so lot to them for Melbourne Temple. Tomorrow at the Timber Yard, it's an entertainment centre. We've got a huge program happening there tomorrow. We look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you very much for attending today. There's more nectar to be had, and we're going to reminisce what's happened over the last 50 years for the next few days. Thank you all. Hare Krishna. And now it's time for lunch. Thank you very much. Haribol.